finally I'm back on the microphone. I want to tell you all about the very important piece in the history of Halifax, and that's about the Halifax explosion. Some important context to start with. So in December of 1917, the Halifax harbor was a very busy hotspot for the World War I. Many wartime ships were entering the harbor, dropping off supplies, or picking up food and munitions on their way to Europe. Now, December 6th of 1917, a French vessel by the name of Mont Blanc was leaving her anchor shooting the Halifax harbor, headed toward the Bedford Basin to join a convoy of wartime ships on their way to Europe. Now, at the exact same time, a Norwegian vessel named the Emo was leaving the Bedford Basin on its way to New York to grab supplies for Belgium. And after a series of ill-judged maneuvers on the part of the Emo to make up for lost time, that vessel ended up the same lane of travel as the oncoming Mont Blanc. And then at about 8:40 in the morning, the Emo struck the Mont Blanc on the bow. Now, two more things to note before I continue. One, the Mont Blanc was an explosive vessel, carrying gun cotton, TNT, benzol, a very highly explosive mixture. And two, the captain of the Mont Blanc did not want to raise the required red flags to indicate that they were an explosive vessel. He believed by doing so, it would make the ship a target to enemy vessels in the water. Now, at first, everything seemed okay. Only a small dent was made into the Mont Blanc by the Emo. But after a couple of minutes, that metal on metal against each other started to scrape against each other, and eventually sparks were produced. There were now benzol fumes in the air coming from the Mont Blanc, and then caught on fire from those sparks. Within a few minutes, the Mont Blanc was catching into flames. Now, as it's going on, the crew of the Mont Blanc and jumping ship and paddling towards safety over in Dartmouth. Now, as they were doing this, they were shouting cries of warning and how dangerous what this fire could lead to. But as I mentioned, it's a French vessel, an entirely French-speaking crew. At the time here in Halifax, no one spoke French. It was now at 8:45 in the morning, and many folks were walking to school or work, and started gathering very large crowds on the mouth of the Halifax harbor to get a look at this insane fire. So then it was a very exciting way to start off the morning, because no one warned the terrible danger they're putting their own lives in. And at 9:04 a.m. and 35 seconds, the Mont Blanc exploded. You can start to picture how devastating this blast was in the city of Halifax. The whole Mont Blanc was blasted 300 meters in the sky, and a shock wave was created by this explosion that hit the city of Halifax at 5,400 kilometers per hour. A tsunami was also caused by the explosion, and overall, the 4% of the Halifax population was killed in an instant. And to make matters worse, the very next day after the explosion, one of the worst snowstorms in Halifax history to that point began to hit the city. So now, not only are by windows, homes, to separate from loved ones, and now being hit by a terribly freezing winter storm. So words are describing what's happening here in Halifax. Our now sister city of Boston, Massachusetts, put on a state of emergency that night of the blast. That night, they rode a train with supplies, warm blankets, food. People in Boston took windows of their own homes and sent them down to Halifax to replace the ones that had shattered here in the city. As well, the entire graduating class of Harvard Medical School was sent down to help out with injuries here in Halifax. So every year we come to Nova Scotia to say thank you to Boston for the help that they gave us in our time of need. We find the biggest and best Christmas tree in the province and send it to Boston so they can light up their Boston Commons at Christmas time. It's just a really great way of saying thank you to them for the help they gave us when we really needed it most. And now to give you folks one final picture of how devastating this blast was in the city of Halifax, this is the world's largest man-made explosion in all of history until the detonation of the atomic bombs of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And this blast took place just at the harbor here, past the first bridge you may see at the Halifax shipyard building. And folks, we now have arrived at our Halifax Naval Dockyards, and I could try and tell you a couple facts from the Naval Dockyards to really explain what we're looking at. However, our captain, Captain Mark, is very knowledgeable of the Naval Dockyards. In fact, he can probably take apart the vessel here and rebuild it. So instead of me just kind of trying to figure out what we're looking at, I'll pass the microphone over to our captain. He can tell you all about the wonderful history and things that we'll be seeing here in the Naval Dockyards. So there's the microphone for Captain Mark.
Hi again, folks. Before I started driving harbor hoppers, I spent an awful lot of time down at this end of the dockyard. It's been a dockyard since 1759, and it was originally established by the British Royal Navy. It's one of the sailboats that are here. Sailboats have the right of way, by the way. He's not a problem for us. So I thought I'd drive you down here into the dockyard a little bit and show you a few things that are interesting that you might not otherwise get the opportunity to see. First of which, this object here on the left-hand side, it looks like a submarine. It is, in fact, a submarine, the HMCS Windsor. We have one of these on this coast, three just like it on the west coast. It's a Victoria-class submarine. It's a diesel-electric drive. And the way that works is the submarine has two diesel engines. The diesel engines are connected to generators. The generators charge up a battery bank. And the battery bank then runs an electric motor, and that's what's attached to the propeller. So when she goes on electric, she's very quiet, very stealthy. But when she runs her diesels, not so much. So she can't stay down forever like a nuclear submarine can, because it really basically dives with what air they have on board. I'm going to turn us around here in a sec, just once this small boat goes by. And so these submarines, as I said, there's 4 of them altogether. These are the ones that we bought from Britain a number of years ago. HMCS Windsor is the only one posted this coast, and about a crew of about just under 70 people, I guess. She is a torpedo-firing submarine from 6 torpedo tubes in the front, bow, and she fires the Mark 48 heavyweight wire-guided torpedo. So that torpedo is about 3,500 pounds. It has 1,000 pounds of explosive in it, and it is a very long range, and when it comes out of the tube, it trails a wire behind. So unlike what you see in the movies where the torpedoes come out and they run in a straight line, they can steer the torpedo after it launches. Just don't want to get too close to that because all of a sudden there's always a little
submarine
that.
that's
Because
very
the ship's
small.
already half sunk, so if you run into it, it's a problem. Never give her a wide berth. So that submarine spent the winter in the shed that you see at the end of the jetty right beside us. That's where they do refits on submarines. That jetty can submerge and pick up a ship. And up to a couple of days ago, it had a frigate up there. One of the frigates that are like the ones that we're going to come by here in a minute. They had the HMCS Charlottetown up there. She weighs about 4,500 to 5,000 tons. And that lifting dock is pretty strong. And they let her down yesterday, and I think we're back in the water. So these 2 ships that are moored on either side of Jetty November Bravo, this is kind of a special day for the folks that have families of the sailors that were on these ships. These 2 ships came back today at 9 o'clock this morning. Almost 500 personnel, whoever 50 per ship. These ships were dispatched to the eastern Mediterranean immediately after the commencement of hostilities between Russia and Ukraine. So when they left here, they weren't really sure what they were going to get into up there, so they certainly went with everything they could possibly take. So this is a Canadian patrol frigate. This is 330, is actually the first one ever built. It's the HMCS Halifax. This is kind of the standard warship for Canada. It uses a helicopter as an integral part of its weapon system. You see the helicopter flight deck on the back. The hangar is right forward of the flight deck in this large door. The helicopter folds all its rotor blades up and it slides right in there, all automated. It's pretty slick, actually. Canada essentially invented this method of using a big helicopter and a smaller ship, and the rest of the world kind of copied it. Now, on top of the hangar, you see a dome with a gun barrel pointed aft. That dome, that system is called the close-in weapon system. That's a 20-millimeter gun. It fires 75 20-millimeter shells per second, 4,500 per minute, and it's effective out to about 5 kilometers or so. So if a sea-skimming vessel is coming inbound, that's the thing that'll take it on. If we go forward, you see some tubes that are leaning away from us at about a 45-degree angle. Each one of those tubes contains a harpoon missile, which is a surface-to-surface and surface-to-land target missile. 500-pound warhead. They go about 120 or so kilometers, and they fly along very low, a couple of meters off the water. So they're a sea-skimming missile. Just forward of that, you see some boxes, a row of boxes, and then a row of tubes, and another row of boxes behind a metal plate. Those boxes contain the evolved Sea Sparrow surface-to-air missile. So those are vertical launch. They take off straight up. They go up to about 400 feet, and then they pitch over on their side and accelerate to 4 times the speed of sound. They're pretty quick. They're good out to about 50 kilometers against an aircraft or smaller vessel. Let's see, we'll go around the front and we'll show you the gun.
I hope they don't blow us out of the water.
It's been away for almost 6 months. When they dropped in today, what happens is the whole crew gets off and a replacement crew gets on to look after the ships so everybody can go home. They came here customs in St. John's 2 days ago. It might sound like St. John's and away home after 6 months, but the reason is pretty simple. That it takes about 6 hours to clear customs on one of these ships. So if you do it in Halifax, your family's going to be waiting for 6 hours for you to get off. So they do that to clear customs elsewhere. They can go immediately. The gun is a 7mm standard aircraft. It's a multi-purpose gun, anti-air, anti-surface. 220 rounds a minute, out to about 17 kilometers, which is pretty long range for a small gun like that. And just the other here at the moment. It's in the turret on the post. Kind of see it now. Tough to see up sun like that for sure. And but it is there. Here you can see it fine. Now the smaller ship that's ahead of that is the smaller class of ships that are based here in Halifax, the Maritime Coastal Defense vessels. Those guys do a lot of counter-narcotics, mine-sweeping, mine-hunting, diving support, that sort of thing. But they also play in the big game as well, because last week 2 of those were dispatched to the eastern Baltic Sea with mine-sweeping gear to join a NATO standing maritime group that's looking after mine warfare and mine countermeasures, also in reaction to the Ukraine-Russian thing. So nobody escapes the real-world operations in the Navy, I'll tell you that. They do them all the time. So these guys are away 6 months. The small ships, they're not going to be back till October. And there were 2 of them left last week. Those little ships are armed with 250 caliber machine guns. They have a quickly replaceable mission system that goes on the back with a container. You change the container, you change the mission of the vessel. 35 to 47 people on board those. And I'll just one flag everybody recognizes, probably the pride flag there. The other little black and white one is denoting that the commanding officer is not currently aboard the vessel. And the vessel on the far side is flying Romeo, the red flag, with the yellow cross, which means she is the ready-duty ship. That's 708. On the other side, HMCS Moncton. This one is Goose Bay. And she's also flying the red and white port flag, meaning she's not occupied. So what's going on there is Goose Bay is looking after the Moncton, and the Moncton's personnel are on short notice recall at home. And if there's an emergency, they'll come aboard their vessel and take it out of the harbor. That's all for now, because we're right at the ramp. And if you want to chat about anything you saw down in the dock here, just grab me down to the parking lot, and I'll try to answer your questions if I can. I'll turn you back over to Owen now, and just hang on nice and tight until we get on the road. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Captain Mark.
Actually, one more thing I should note about the Halifax explosion is that right before the glass went off, they started looking out their windows, trying to fire in the harbor, and because of that, they caught glass in their eyes, causing partial or complete vision loss. So due to that, the Canadian National Institute line was created after the explosion effects. So that is something that's very part of all of Canada at large. Folks, now we are back on dry land. I think it's a pretty good time to tell you all about Halifax history with the RMS Titanic. Now, some of you may know, on April 14th and 15th of 1912, the RMS Titanic struck an iceberg on the coast of Newfoundland and began to sink into the ocean below. Now, at the time that vessel impacted the iceberg, the nearest port that could have sent up ships on a relief effort was completely iced over at the time. As I mentioned, we entered our harbor is ice-free every single day of the year. So once you're in Halifax, you're informed of what was happening to the Titanic, you rallied together a group of boats to send out on a rescue mission. Now, unfortunately, by the time our boats had arrived, it was 3 days of travel, and turning much more of a recovery mission than a rescue mission. About 300 bodies were recovered to see the Titanic, and laid to rest at numerous of the grave sites here in Halifax, notably Fairview Lawn Cemetery. Now, before I continue, has anyone aboard today happened to have seen the 1997 film Titanic? A lot of hands, a lot of nodding. Okay, excellent. Well, you may not know, but a third of that film was filmed here in Nova Scotia, and before filming began, Director James Cameron came to Halifax to visit the city and do some research. He went to the Maritime Museum, there's a very extensive Titanic exhibit there, and he also to Fairview Lawn Cemetery to visit the headstones of the victims of that disaster. Now, among those headstones is a headstone with the inscription of J. Dawson. Now, those who haven't seen the film Titanic, but it was a huge success, and Leonardo DiCaprio's performance as Jack Dawson still the hearts of many across the globe. So we're excited to spend in our very own Fairview Lawn Cemetery. We had a very real J. Dawson headstone, visited by the film's very director. People all over the world sort of freaked out quite a bit. People all over the world started running into Fairview Lawn Cemetery to visit the headstone of a man they'd never known. Knowing J. Dawson's love letters, lockets of hair, movie tickets, kissing the headstone and crying over the grave. And this went on for over a year straight. And for over a year of this, the local Halifax story, I'm not enough people not really knowing the truth of the situation. There was a story on CBC Radio and told the world that J. Dawson's headstone did not belong to the fictional Jack Dawson. No, it's belonged to Joseph Dawson. Joseph Dawson did courage on board the Titanic. He was an Irish help shelter bird that had Titanic engines. And I'm sure Joseph was a really great guy, but people who looked at let down, he was not the fictional Jack they were all so in love with. Last week we started going to Fairview Lawn Cemetery to read J. Dawson's letters, but some do say for the grass that grows around J. Dawson Headstone. So there's a little bit greener than a cut of grass for everyone, so I'm sure. And so at this moment in time, I am picturing a tons of this right here in Halifax, so I personally want to thank all the people for my job. And then folks, we're on Hollow Street, and to the left-hand side, we're next to the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia. Down the windows of the Art Gallery, with some very colorful flowers, has one thing named Maud Lewis. Now, Maud goes to Canadian Navy, Nova Scotia, and February she suffered from rheumatoid arthritis. Sometimes the painter man's got too much older paintbrushes. She would continue playing her artwork by holding the paintbrush in between her toes. It was very similar to the work inside the gallery. I saw the gallery got permission from the state to move it home for Digby and rebuild inside the gallery. That's what Maud would help us exhibit onto itself. She won't be here to explain so much. She painted very strange round ceilings in her house with very distinct artwork. Maybe the gallery is great for 5 p.m. on Thursday for those who are so inclined. And now, folks, one final story I'll tell you before we head back to our Lower Water Street parking lot is that the Halifax Press Gang. Now, you may have seen the very beginning of our tour when we were heading up Prince Street. We passed by a restaurant with the name of Press Gang Restaurant. Well, that restaurant got its name from a very old Canadian Navy tradition dating back to here in Halifax in the early 1900s. So essentially what took place was in the early 1900s, inscription of the Canadian Navy was way down, and the Navy wanted to build those numbers way up. So the local Halifax Navy men built something that they dubbed the Press Gang. What they would do is they'd go to one of the many bars here in Halifax and find a man drinking the bar by himself. When he came into his cup, they'd drop a silver coin into his glass. Now, if the man never noticed the silver coin, nothing would happen. But if he drank this drink, found a silver coin at the bottom of his cup, and spent it somewhere here in Halifax, the very next day the man was woken up by an officer steward, and he was forced to join the Canadian Navy. And that is exactly what happened here in Halifax. But hey, if you folks happen to find a silver coin at the bottom of a drink while here in Halifax, maybe I'll be pointing out you fine folks on my next water tour. And now, folks, we're headed back towards our Harbor parking lot. And I want to thank you folks for coming on board today. If you really enjoyed yourself, you're going to raise on Google TripAdvisor, Yelp, whatever it may be. If you enjoyed yourself, taking sarcasm is always great too. I will go myself to Captain Peter several duties, but not all expected. And you know, folks, we've been sitting down for quite a while now. So I enjoy me really stretching of those arms. We've been sitting down for really stretch it out. Really stretch out those arms. There we go. And now stretch on your toes, stretch on your toes. And while you're down there stretching your toes, did you leave any garbage behind? Please pick it up. I'll just ask that you folks don't leave your seats until I make way to the back of the vessel or the staircase. Once I do that, you're free to disembark. And just another reminder, folks, there's some very large trees on the right-hand side on our return to the parking lot, so please try not to high-five those trees back. Going into official land, I'd like to thank you once more for choosing the Harbor as your ride through Halifax. I want you all to have a wonderful rest of your time here in the city of Halifax. Thank you so much, folks.